Hello and welcome to Evolving on Purpose, a show I have created in hopes that I can inspire you to take the deep dive into discovering who you are and what you came here to do. Each week, I will have on individuals to share their unique journey to self-discovery and where their purpose is taking them. I will also do solo episodes to share what I am currently learning, practicing, or even just contemplating. So come on, what are you waiting for? Join me in Evolving on Purpose. Welcome to season 2 of the podcast. The first year doing the podcast was such a learning experience, but it was so much fun for me to really start connecting to all of the amazing guests that I had and start curating some of these conversations that I've just been dreaming about having for so long. I always loved podcasts. Podcasts helped me, especially when I was struggling. I heard this saying once that you are the 5 people you hang out with the most. And I was looking around my life, and while I loved the people in my life, nobody was doing or acting or feeling the way that I wanted to be, act, feel. And it was really a struggle to get myself out of that when I didn't have anybody around me doing the things that I wanted to be doing, believing in seeing the world the way that I wanted to see it. And it was such a struggle. So I just turned to podcasts and I was working these jobs that I really didn't enjoy. But they didn't take up that much of my mind. I was able to really do them and listen to podcasts to learn so much, and also really surround myself by the type of people that I wanted to be around, the people that were putting in the effort to change their bodies, their minds, their lives in a really positive way. And so I just surrounded myself in podcasts constantly. I listened to maybe 5 podcasts a day sometimes. It was a lot. It was excessive, but it was what got me through the day and helped kind of feed my mind to keep me moving forward on the path, but also surrounding myself in the energy of the people that I wanted to be like. So that's what I hope for my podcast, that it can give you that connection if maybe you're missing it in your life, or you're just looking for information, or just wanting to have more of a positive, high-level conversation that you're not getting elsewhere. So tuning in and listening with all of us that are into have the same interests and things like that is such a magical experience for me to now be hosting it. So thank you everybody that has been listening over this year and sticking with me while I'm figuring all of this stuff out. This year, I just really want to focus on connection. So that's kind of our theme. We're gonna connect to spirit, connect to self, connect to our bodies, connect to the earth, connect to our food, and connect to others. Because really, when we put some intention in any of these areas, we're just going to connect positively to make these changes that we want to make in our lives, right? And when you start focusing your attention there, your whole world can change, connecting to your body, calming it down. You know, a lot of times we're in fight or flight and we don't even know it. Connecting to our food. What are we nourishing our body with? Connecting to the earth. Are we putting our feet on the ground ever? Are we walking in nature? Connecting to others. Anybody that's watched the Blue Zone, like, it's so important to have community. So let's talk about that. How do we connect to others? How do we find people that we can really connect to? Connecting to ourselves. I mean, I use my favorite tools: human design, astrology, gene keys, which I will be creating a YouTube channel to really be able to teach more, because this is something I think everybody should have access to, is finding themselves. So I'll create that YouTube channel for more teaching on those kind of systems. And then yes, connecting to spirit is kind of what we're talking about today. My guest today is all about spirit and all of the ways we can connect. And she has a very strong connection to spirit. It was very interesting because I originally asked her to come on the podcast to talk about prosperity. I found her through I was just searching for more information on people that followed Catherine Ponder, who I love Catherine Ponder's work on prosperity. And I found her podcast. I was listening to her. And then the day that I hopped on to podcast with her, I thought, I think this is going to be about prayer. And interesting enough, she is going to have a prayer group that she is starting, a workshop on how to pray and connecting to prayer. And so I thought that was really beautiful that popped in my mind as the topic. And then that's what she's actually promoting right now. So we were just both very connected. So without further ado, let's hop in and learn all about Reverend Frances. Hello and welcome. I am so excited for today's guest. Today I have Reverend Frances Fayden. She's an interfaith minister, an author, an intuitive energy coach for conscious women entrepreneurs, and the host of Magnify Your Miracle podcast, which is how I found her, was her podcast. So we'll talk about that. She's a master intuitive healer, a metaphysical coach. Reverend Frances is fluent in the language of human energy field known as the chakra system. So I can't wait for her to explain that a little bit more. And she can quickly translate this energetic information to help her clients heal and transform. In 2012, Reverend Frances had a profound encounter with Mother Mary, which changed the direction of her life and awakened her to life purpose. So we will talk about that for sure. She has been channeling the messages from Mother Mary ever since. She's the author of 2 books, Meditation is Friendship with God and How to Recognize God. Her passion is connecting to women to the unconditional love of the divine, and then teach them how to magnify that connection, which is the key to magnifying your miracles. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with a fellow Gemini.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I would love to. Do you know your sun, rising, and moon sign?
Yeah, sure. Sun is in Gemini and moon and rising are both in Cancer.
I love that. That makes so much sense too.
Doesn't it?
Exactly who you are. Yeah. So you have that beautiful Gemini energy that makes you curious and able to share and talk and all of that. But then you brought in that warmth of the Cancer to really care and take care of people. So I love that. Let's just dive in with a few questions that I had already.
Yeah, please. Let's dive in.
What does it mean to be an interfaith minister?
Well, that's a great question. And I can't answer for all the interfaith ministers that are out there, but I can tell you, for me, it means that I'm not affiliated with any specific church or organization. I'm not representing one idea. I actually was ordained by, back then it was called the New Seminary. It's now called One Spirit. I think it's called One Spirit Seminary, which was founded by Rabbi Gelberman. And I think it was a rabbi, sounds like a joke, a rabbi, a minister, and a Swami founded it. And Rabbi Gelberman really wanted to offer something to the world because he lost his family in the Holocaust. And he had just come to the United States when it was like 1939. And after the war, when he would go to temple services, it was just filled with so much anger, which is understandable. But his philosophy was, Hitler got my family, but he's not going to get me. I'm not going to let him take me down through hatred and all that. I'm going to find a way that we can have religious understanding. So he started exploring yoga in the 1950s and 60s and different things. And this was his passion, was to bring things together. And so I tried to be a minister in a couple different churches. It didn't really work for me. And then when I found out about the new seminary, I was like, oh my God, this is everything that I love. So I became ordained with them. But once you're ordained, that's it. You're pretty much on your own. You're not going to try to convert anybody or recruit anybody. So for me, it's about focusing on what we have in common rather than what sets us apart. I personally, my personal path is bring East and West together. So I kind of call myself, it's like, I was raised Catholic, but I'm also lived for 6 years in an ashram, a yoga ashram. So kind of like a Catholic yogi. I just love spirit. I love everything that brings everything together. So wherever anybody loves God, I'm at home. And that's kind of what that means. Originally, it was to help people who were from different backgrounds, from different faiths, to be able to get married, because if you were Catholic and you wanted to marry somebody Jewish, like that was a difficult thing. So interfaith ministers back then were the only people that would do those types of things in a way other than the justice of the peace. And that's kind of what people were doing. And it's now this next generation of people like me who are more really helping people connect spiritually in ways that are meaningful for them.
I love that. It's exactly kind of what I had to find along the way, because I was raised, my grandmother was psychic. She was she was a really, really beautiful, wonderful psychic, and she loved God, right? So anywhere she lived, she would go find a church. Her family wasn't religious, but she would go find a church, and she had all of these books, and loved to read the Bible and talk to God every day. But then, we were kind of raised with this open-mindedness to spirituality and to, psychic abilities and things like that, but also in a church. But then as a little kid, the church would say that psychics are bad or wrong. They would say, things like, I remember being like 5 years old, and the pastor said how much he was talking about mission trips and how we needed to get there and save these people. And it was all about how they needed to know Jesus to be saved. And I thought, there's some kid somewhere that doesn't know Jesus, and he's going to go to hell or not go to heaven, or that doesn't make any sense to me. And it just kind of put that doubt in my mind as a little kid. And then I went off to college and really split from the church. You learn in college sometimes about, it's indoctrination and all of this. And they show you kind of maybe this not so great side of religion. And so I just was like, well, that's stupid. People that believe in, some kind of religion is stupid. But then I was left without faith. And that's a really bad place to be too. Exactly. And so I just couldn't find, and along the way, of course, my mom set up with my aunts and my grandma to bring me back in, and we started reading some beautiful books. There's so many beautiful books that we started reading and talking, and I remembered, what I loved about God and source and universe and all of that. And then I was able to kind of see, no matter what the religion or what people believe, that they were all, kind of loving the same thing. And now I just have such an open-mindedness. I am I have more in common with people that have some sort of faith than I don't, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's what you're alluding to as well. And that's why I was so drawn to you when I read your story, having kind of that mindset as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really true. A lot of people have your story, which is grow up with something, at some point go, not so sure about that. And then don't have anything else to replace it with, and then feel kind of like on your own and a little bit lost. And that's a lot of the people that I work with. It's like people that don't really fit in the religion that they were raised in, and yet there's something that they miss. They're missing something and not really sure how to do that. And it's what I love, because I think we're all wired to have that direct connection. We're all wired to be able to connect with source in whatever way source manifests for you. It's just learning that you can do that. it's learning and trusting yourself. And that's the biggest thing, getting some of those messages out that, I mean, the one that makes me scratch my head the most is like, don't connect with the angels. They might be demons in disguise. I'm like, really? I mean, angels are like throughout the Bible. It's like they're still appearing all over the world. And I'm like, okay, but when people come from fear, that's what happens. They just get afraid of everything. And I just pray for those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I took an angel class a couple of years ago, and them kind of going through the angels and connecting to that energy. It was like the first hookup I'd really felt since maybe the few moments that, everything was perfect and you're praying at church or the music is swelling and you feel that connection.
Yep.
That was the first time. I was just sitting in my office taking this class, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is what I want to be connected to all the time. And
Yep.
so sometimes I call in the angels, sometimes I call in I'm interested to get more information on how you connect with Mother Mary, because I really haven't had that connection, but definitely, God, source, divine, that I call in my helpers and my angels. So I just don't know. I wouldn't be here right now without connecting to that every day.
Sure.
I just did a little meditation and connection for my sister and my mom the other day, and they were like, oh, this feels so good. And I thought, oh my gosh, they probably haven't connected since the last time that I did the little meditation for them. And I do it every day, and I couldn't live without that fuel, right? That plug-in, that connection that helps guide me and let me know that everything's okay. And so I can connect. So
absolutely. My sister she said to me, you're like an iPhone. You have to go plug yourself in. And there's lots of ways of doing that. I mean, some people have a hard time with meditation. You can just simply start with prayer. You can just go for a walk out in nature. One of the things I love to do is to go on like a mini pilgrimage, just find like, what are the sacred spots in a certain area? It could be a church or a temple, or it's just a beautiful spot by a river. It could be anything. But I think that connecting back, because it's really, we think it's like some mystical thing. It's really about connecting back with ourselves. That's what's really going on, is connecting with ourselves.
yeah, the biggest part of ourselves. I love that. Let's go and kind of rewind, and can you give us maybe just a little bit of information on how you got into this? You said that you lived in an ashram for a certain amount of time, and you've done all of this. And then I really want to hear your 2012 connection with Mother Mary, but
Sure.
however you feel the best way to kind of arc this story.
It all connects. So as I said, I was raised Catholic, and my dad's side's Irish, my mom's side's Italian from Southern Italy. So we always had like a statue of Saint Anthony or somebody in the house. My grandmother would talk to these statues. So I kind of was raised with a little bit of kind of that mysticism. Like, it just seemed like that's how people are. And when I was about 7 years old, I think it was, I remember going to Easter service with my mom, and just having this really amazing experience where it was like I was so excited. It was like, it's Easter. And the priest was kind of somber, and I remember just being so puzzled when I was little, like, why isn't he talking about joy? I was like, how come he's not, why aren't we dancing? I was like, what's happening? And I had the thought then of like, that's what I want to do. I want to talk to people about God. And then was quickly told, like, you can't do that because girls can't do that. And even then, when I was 7, I was like, well, that can't be the truth. I just was like, that doesn't seem right. Because at that point, I still could feel that presence of God, guiding me. And I just felt held by that. And when I was little, I was like, well, why would I have that feeling if that wasn't what I was supposed to do? That doesn't make sense. But then it slowly got kind of beat out of me, so to speak. And by the time I was 11, I was like, this is not working for me, because I started putting things together about equality and all these things. And I was like, oh, this church thing isn't going to work for me. So then I started studying metaphysics. And a big piece of it was because I wanted to understand myself. So I started astrology and nothing predictive. I used to read a book, which I don't know if you know this book. It was my Bible back in the 70s. It was Linda Goodman's Love Signs. You know, Linda Goodman's,
Yes.
and she'd talk about like, you know, a male Aries and a female Taurus or whatever, and all the different iterations of, and that was actually how I learned astrology. Was I was like, oh, interesting. And if Aries is in a male expression, it's, and so it just gave me, you know, it's dated now, obviously, with all the gender stuff, but it just helped me to really understand myself and why did I get along with some people better than other people. And so then I started studying like everything. I was like past lives, and I just was so curious because I had this yearning to know what the truth was. And I remember taking my first official science class in like sixth or seventh grade. And I was so happy. I was like, oh, I'm going to learn the truth. And I was like, they don't know. All they do is explain that things are happening. They have no idea why anything's happening. And I'm like, I want to know why. So all of that was, I just explored everything. And then I had a health crisis when I was about 19. And then my exploration kind of took a turn and went down the health and wellness road. And that's when I started learning like Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, and learning that emotions affected your health. Nobody had ever told me that before. So 19, 20, 21, all that time period when I was in college, I was really focused on how does it all work and changing the way I was eating and all that. And I went to my first healer, and she was the one that opened my eyes to all of this because I didn't fill out any form. She just like, I think she took like a little saliva sample or something, went in the back room, didn't ask me anything, came back, went right to the area that was bothering me and said, this area is only functioning about 20%, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I can give you some herbs, but unless you forgive whoever you're angry with, this is going to persist. And then she went away. And I was just like, how did she know? I was like, how did she know? And so I was like, I wish I could do that. That was so cool. So when I graduated from college, I worked for a little while in what I studied, but I was really wanting to do that healing stuff because I was like, what is that? That's so cool. And I became a body worker, massage therapist. And in the course of doing that, I started working with energy, and that was kind of an extracurricular thing that we had to take. And I took the chakra class and just incorporated it in. But when I was working with people, a funny thing started happening is I would just be trying to clear the energy, and I started getting these images, and then they started talking to me. The chakras started talking to me. I was like, whoa. And then I would ask my client, is there a reason why I'm seeing a dog in your second chakra? Oh, my dog passed away 2 months ago. I was like, oh, okay. So I started seeing a little bit more about that. And then people really wanted that, and I couldn't do that and do massage at the same time. So I let go of the body work and just focused on what I called intuitive healing. And at that point, it was still very health and wellness oriented. But I still had that desire to, you know, to be a minister. And so I had moved to New York, and when I was there, was trying to do the singer-songwriter thing for a while. And I didn't have the oomph to be in a smoky bar at 2 a.m. So I kind of let that go. And I was working with my very first coach at that time. This is like 1997. And she's the one that recommended the new seminary. So I went and did that. And that really helped me so much. It felt like it validated who I was. It was enough structure, but not too much structure. Like I wasn't boxed in. It still gave me a lot of freedom, but it gave me just enough to really help me, and also legally help me to be doing the counseling that I was doing. So then I was able to do that. And then I moved out to California, and I met my wife about a year after I moved out there. And she had this really great practice of morning and evening meditation and chanting. And I was like, the great thing about being an interfaith minister is you can do everything. The bad thing is you can do everything. It's like, I really wanted to go a little deeper. I was like, I wanted to kind of find, you know, my path, even though I was honoring all the paths. And that's when I reread Autobiography of a Yogi. I'd read it in college by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I opened it right to the chapter on Kriya Yoga. And I was like, this is what I want to learn. And I did a deep dive there, became a disciple of Yogananda. And that's the spiritual community. The Sanskrit word is ashram, but that's a spiritual community that we had moved to that was based on his teachings. And we lived there for 6 years. And that was my dream, Angela. I was just like, oh my God, to live in an environment with spiritual people, to have God be the center of my life. That was it. And we were out in the country and it was just amazing. And I was so attached to like, we're going to live here for the rest of our lives. Like, this is the thing. Because I really was trying to do what I thought Jesus has said, which is seek ye first the kingdom and everything else was going to fall in place. And I thought this is a great way to do that. And then things started to not go so well in that community. And we started seeing things that made us go, like, oh, I don't know about this. And and I honestly, I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to admit it because it was my dream. It was like, no, I really want this to be the case. But after a while, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. And there weren't a lot of outward rules, but there was a lot of peer pressure and a lot of, stuff going on. And it wasn't a very big community, but there were just some things that like I couldn't get behind. And one of the big things for me personally was just, they really believed in, my interpretation anyway, is there was this culture of self-sacrifice. Let me put it that way. And I was raised in that, and it's not a healthy thing for me. I needed to really learn how to take care of myself and honor myself. And the more that I had boundaries there, the more I felt kind of disapproval and a little bit of shunning happening. And again, this is my interpretation. It's probably fine for other people. So we really needed to leave at about 3 years, and we stayed 3 years longer. So we were there for 6 years. And at the end of it, we knew we needed to leave, and we moved down to Southern California. But that's when I went through my dark night of the soul, because I felt really confused. I was like, I thought I was following what Jesus said to do. This is what I really wanted. This was my heart's desire. And there's nothing else I want other than something like, and I was lost. And I was like, well, how am I going to follow my intuition now? Because I have this voice telling me, well, you were wrong before. When now I look back at it and I'm like, obviously this was like spiritual graduate school for you. It wasn't supposed to be the thing you were meant to do for the rest of your life. But at the time, I just was like, I was heartbroken. I just was crushed. And so for about 9 months or so, we were down in Encinitas, California. I'd go down and walk on the beach, and I was still helping other people. But, I wrote that book about meditation, and I couldn't meditate anymore because anything that was associated with that community was like too painful for me. So I'd sit and I'd pray and I'd listen to music, then I'd journal, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't quiet myself down enough. It was too painful. And then it was right around the 9-month mark or so that I went to go see this beautiful saint from India who comes around, once a year. And I thought, maybe she'll give me a blessing. Maybe it'll help me, So I went to go see her, and she did give me a blessing. And I wrote on my little card, just please help me open my heart back up to God, because I was just so heartbroken. And she gave me a blessing, and it really made a big difference. And about 6 weeks later, I started noticing Mother Mary's energy showing up in little ways. Now, I had been living in a community that was based on very Eastern types of things, even though it was an East-West kind of an idea. We talked about Divine Mother. We were it wasn't about anything Mother Mary, anything like that. And it was the last thing I wanted to connect with. And so I started seeing these things showing up, and I was like, okay, that's kind of lovely. And then I was praying in 2012, and I was still feeling kind of lost, even though I was doing a little bit better. And I just was asking God. And to me, it was Divine Mother was just this beautiful energy, divine feminine. It wasn't a person. And I was like, oh, Divine Mother, you got to help me. You got to, like, who am I here to serve? Like, what am I going to do now that I'm not living in my spiritual community? Like, what am I going to do? And because I'm sensitive to energy, which you will understand, I've been working as an energy practitioner for a while. All of a sudden, I felt the energy in the room shift. And I was sitting at my altar, and I was like, oh, somebody's here. My eyes were closed. I was like, and in my mind's eye, I looked behind me, and whoosh. Now I'd seen Archangel Michael in the past, so I knew about divine beings, but I saw that it was Mother Mary standing behind me. She had her blue on. I'm like, oh, that's Mother Mary. So I was like, all right. So I didn't dare open my eyes. I was just like, all right. So I just asked, I said, why are you here? And all she said to me is, I want to be on your next call that you're doing. And I had just started going from working with people one-on-one to doing groups where I would give people messages. And I was working with the angels doing that. And so she said she wanted to be on my next call. In other words, she wanted me to channel messages from her. And I was like, oh, okay. And then boom, she was gone, just like that. And I was like, what just happened? And I thought, did I make that up? I was like, and then immediately I was like, how am I going to explain this to people? I'm not even Catholic. Oh my God, how's this going to work? But I was in such a place where I was like, all right, I'm willing to try anything. Let me just try and see what happens. Now, believe me, I would have been happy if it had been like an alien from Mars that had come, because I was like, how am I going to talk about this? I was like, oh my God. But then I did. And I was so grateful that at the end of that call, I shared messages. I was able to do it. I was able to channel. And the first three people said to me, I don't know if you're wondering about your purpose, but this is what you're meant to be doing. You're supposed to be doing this. And I was like, okay. So then I have been, and I've been having a conversation with the energy that I call Mother Mary ever since, which, just to be clear to your listeners, when I say Mother Mary, that's how she appears to me. But I know that if we were in India having this conversation, this would be Durga, this would be Lakshmi. If we were in China, it would be Kuan Yin. If we were in Egypt, it would be Isis. It would just be, this is the energy of the divine feminine. I call it the energy of unconditional love. She just happens to come to me in the form of Mother Mary. So for you, you think you're not connected with her, you absolutely are connected with her. Whether she shows up as this being, doesn't really matter. It's really that energy of unconditional love. So she and I have been having a dialogue ever since, and I've been channeling her. And so my focus went from health and wellness more to helping people with their purpose. So I help people develop their relationship with the divine in whatever way, and helping them manifest whatever is their purpose, getting clear about that. So that's the long answer to your short question about Mother Mary.
I love all this so much, and I just cannot get over how I don't know that I've ever been in a conversation with another Gemini that's at this, like in a spiritual way, because we know what Gemini can look like if it's not spiritual.
Oh yeah.
But in a spiritual sense, I just feel such a kinship, because it is such, even, you're channeling, you're still open to say, hey, this could look very different. And that's kind of the Gemini way, right? You can see from every single side. It's just this open-mindedness, but you've still found your way. And that's what I saw a lot too with you, was this almost scattering, because the mind can be so open that it's like, oh, there's so many options.
Yeah.
And then finding a way to connect with what works, and finding your way to that. So that was really beautiful and helpful for me as a Gemini to kind of see all of the spattering that I've had. I had the same kind of the dark night of the soul and the health issues, and thought I was going to be a wellness coach, and just couldn't get myself well enough for it, because that wasn't my path. So.
And I love it. You and I, we're going to be lifelong learners. I love learning, but I pray a lot to help me, like, pull my energy in, to let me focus, because I can very easily, my mind is so active that I can very easily just be, we just moved and I had to, pack all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to unpack any of it. I'm like, I don't want to have a million things in my space anymore. It's like, I'm really enjoying the simplicity and the focus, because my tendency is to not, my tendency is to like, what's happening? What's that? Let's learn something new.
Yes. I lose a lot of hours reading a lot of books, because I just want to learn all of the time. And you have to, at some point, say, hey, I have to put some of this in practice. I have to share this. I have to share what I'm learning, and not just keep, because I would never be bored. I could learn forever.
Absolutely. You and me, sister. Yep.
I love that so much. We kind of talked about what we wanted to maybe convey on this, and one of the things that keep coming up and came up for me, actually, this your book, and then this book, the Universe is Calling, which is a prayer book as well, kind of stuck out as I was coming down the stairs, and I was like, oh, prayer.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about prayer, because as I kind of talked about before we got on the call, when I was growing up, it was, my mom just taught me to say that, lay me down, now I lay me down to sleep. And it was kind of a morbid prayer for a child. And it wasn't very helpful for me. It was just me reciting, right? I didn't feel connected. Can you talk about prayer a little bit, and how you teach people to pray, or what you think is the most important elements of prayer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you asked this question. I love talking about prayer. And on my podcast a couple of episodes ago, I just talked about the two things that Mother Mary always asks. And so ever since I had what I call my visitation with her, I've been studying her apparitions, and there's a theme, and if you look to see, they're all interpreted a little bit differently because they're in different cultures, but she always is calling us to prayer. And then the second thing is she's calling us to create something or make something in some way. So I think those two things are really connected, prayer and creativity. And I think those are kind of cornerstones of the spiritual path, especially if you're a light worker of any kind. And so this is an interesting question. It's like, okay, she's calling us to pray, but she doesn't call us to necessarily, quote unquote, convert. In fact, many times she'll say to people, no matter what your religion, you need to be praying. So I've looked at this like, what does this mean? And the whole reason that she recommends to do it is to connect with God, to connect with spirit, to connect with source. Because prayer is not about getting God to do something. Prayer is about changing us and how it changes us. And this is so where I am so far on my journey. My understanding is that when we're praying, it's to acknowledge that there is this presence that's within you and without you that you can be in harmony with, that you can, feel your connection to source flowing through you. It moves you beyond just your conscious mind. But I think it also, the ultimate goal of it is to get us from our head into our heart. And so this is actually something that I'm going to be teaching. I have a course coming up called Pray Like a Priestess. And the point of that is to pray with confidence, to be able to pray knowing that your prayers are answered. And what does it mean to have your prayer answered? And there's 4 types of prayer that Mother Mary wants me to talk about and share that she recommends. And one is the prayer of asking, and which is the one that we all know, like, God, please help me with, whatever it might be. But we're actually supposed to be doing that a lot more than we do it. It's meant to be something that we're constantly in a state of communion with the divine. The second are prayers of receiving. So when we're asking, we also need to be open to receiving. And again, that's what do we need to do to help ourselves be open and receptive, right? A lot of times people think their prayers aren't answered when the answer is kind of bouncing off of them because they're not really open to getting the help. The third kind is what I call prayers of invocation. This is what shifts energy. It's like being able to invoke spirit, being able to change the energy in the room, prayers of invocation. Sometimes they're called prayer demands. Those are really, really powerful. And then the last kind, which is my favorite, which is prayers of the heart. And this is where you're just really having that one-on-one connection with spirit. So when you say like, how to pray, I talk about this in my book on meditation, which is if you were to say to me, I really want to talk to my best friend, Susie. How do I talk to Susie? I would kind of look at you like, does Susie have like a learning disability? Like, is there a reason why you can't talk to Susie? Like you'd be like, oh, I'm calling Susie now. I'm going to pick up the phone and call Susie. I approach prayer in the same way, which is just like, don't make it so formal. Don't make it like a mystery. It's just like, pick up the phone and be like, I really need some help. Or, hey, God, I had the best day today. Thank you so much. Like it's just having normal conversation. And I remember one time when I was, it's a long time ago, when I was at my mentor's, she was having a workshop of some kind, and we were out in the room getting snacks or something, and she was in the room getting ready. And I heard her in there, and she's just like talking a mile a minute, blah, 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 blah. And she's very animated, like, I am not going to do blah, 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 whatever it was. And then she came out, and there was nobody in the room with her. And she was talking to the angels, because that's what she does. She's an angel channel. And I was like, I want that kind of connection where she's just chatting with them as if they're there in the room with her, because they are. Now, whether we see them or we don't see spirit, I encourage people, just start talking. Just start. And as I've been unpacking the house, I've been doing that. I've been like, oh, Divine Mother, what box did I put that in? Where are my headphones? And then a thought comes in my head as soon as I say it. I'm like, where did I do that? And then an image pops in. So having this dialogue is really, really beautiful. Now, you can definitely do formal prayers. You can say rosaries. You can do mantras. All of that's beautiful. But I would encourage people who are listening to let go of any shoulds. Just let go of the shoulds and really just talk like you're talking to Divine Mother. You're talking to your best friend. You're talking to your own highest self. You're talking to the energy that loves you unconditionally, is never judging you, and wants to just rush through you and help you feel beautiful and loved and good all the time. So some things that I like to do personally is I like to write my prayers. So journaling for me is very much about praying on paper. That's how I do it. I like to journal. It gets it out of my head and gets it out. And once it's out of my head, I can feel it more in my heart. Another thing that's really great for getting your heart open is music, singing prayers, singing things, chanting. It's really, really, really beautiful. So there's no like magic formula necessarily. I think prayer is the most natural thing that there is. It's just you and God chatting, or whatever you believe in, you and Source, you and Archangel Michael, you and the angels, you and Mother Nature. The universe is always responding to us. It's always responding to us and guiding us and, sending signs. And so I think prayer is just learning how to pray with confidence. I think it's just a very important skill. So that's what I'm going to be teaching.
I love that. I think that is a really, really important thing for everybody to have. And you've even opened up for me maybe some ways to enhance my prayer practice, because right now it's, kind of a thank you, thank you, thank you, open my eyes at night, and then a thank you, thank you, thank you in the morning, and followed by a little meditation where I listen, right? Mm-hmm. You always talk about prayer is talking and meditation is listening. But yeah, even having, I would love that too. I'm going to set that as an intention to have more of a conversation flowing throughout the day, and not just at those times that I sit down and make the time for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of us, when do we notice our prayers being answered? With like in a crisis, And I've always wondered about that. Like, why are crisis prayers like answered like that? And I think it's because we're like focused. It's like, we're like, oh God, I really, we use all this energy, and then the universe just responds with a similar energy. So you don't have to be in crisis to get that kind of response. You just have to be focused and have that intensity of like, even the thank you. I love thank you prayers. I think thank you prayers are the most important to really open us up, but you just don't want to stop there. That's like getting us started.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to take it further and maybe even join your workshop that you
I would love that. Yeah, we're going to start on Halloween this year, and it's going to go from Halloween to Mardi Gras. So it's going to set people up for people that practice, Lent. You'll have all this time of really letting yourself be in this energy, and then boom, you can apply it right away to the Lenten season, which is a lovely time.
I love that. I think that's a wonderful time to start it as well. The perfect time when we're winding down from all the summer activities and all of that, and going into that next season. Can you tell people a little bit what it's like to work with you? Because I mean, I've listened to your podcast and some of the people that you've worked with, so I have a little bit of an idea. But if somebody doesn't know what you do, what does that look like to work one-on-one with you?
So fun. It's just so fun. So thank you for asking. I love helping people to get results in their lives with their purpose and all of that. And usually when people are needing help with that, something's in the way. And so I usually work with people over time. So I have more of like I combine all the spiritual counseling that I do, everything, and the energy work that I do, and I put it in a coaching format. And so when people work with me one-on-one, usually it's working with me over time. But there are times when people just have a question and they're like, oh, should I go back to school? Should I not go back to school? Is it right for me to do this? And I don't ever do anything predictive. What I do is I ask your energy. And so the main thing, if you take my story, it's like I've been working with people on their energy really since I was in my early 20s talking. So it's been a long time now. It's been 30 years or so that I've been doing this. And I'm very fluent in what's going on. And so often our mind takes over and it'll override things, but your energy never lies. But your mind is going to talk you out of it. And so you might be feeling like, oh, I really want to take that trip, or I really want to do that course with Francis. And your mind is going to be like, well, do you really have the time? I don't know. It's not a good time. But your energy will tell you whether you're moving in that direction or not. So when I work with people, it's on a couple different levels. So there's the you and I talking, we're chatting about what's going on. You'll tell me what's happening with you. I'll tell you what I'm seeing, just, observing. And then I look at somebody's energy and I do that intuitively. And then I'm like, oh, this is what's going on with the energy. And then the fourth layer is I also channel Mother Mary or whoever you work with. I mean, that's the big gift that Mother Mary has given me, which I'm so grateful for, is that I can work with any being. And so if somebody comes to me and they're Muslim, like I did have somebody who was Muslim one time, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that's going to be like. But guess who channeled the Quran is Archangel Gabriel. So she came and boom, Archangel Gabriel's energy came in, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. So depending upon who you work with, that's the energy that will come. So having that high level of intuitive insight from that being, having your own energy, and then having my feedback and your feedback, it's what helps people get results really, really quickly. And then I also do energy balancing at the end. So typically in a session, what would happen is you and I would be working on whatever you'd say. You'd say, Francis, I really want to grow my business. I really want to be a light worker on the planet. I want to reach more people. Should I have a podcast? Should I do YouTube? Should I write a book? Should I, what should I do? There's too many options for me. And I'll say, okay, Gemini, I get it. I totally understand it. And then I'll ask you some questions like, what about this? You tell me. And then we'll look at your energy, and your energy is going to say to me, I need a vacation before I can make any decision or whatever. I'm making it up.
Yeah.
Or your energy is going to be like, book. And you'll be like, I was really thinking about a book, but it takes so long. I'm like, well, your energy's saying book. And then Mother Mary's energy comes in and be like, giving you whatever the feedback is, like, here's the ideas for the book, or and it's funny because one of the things you wouldn't think, this is Mother Mary, she gives me marketing ideas for people all the time. Or she'll say to me, have Angela talk to so-and-so at such and such publishing company. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's always hooking people up through me and doing all of that. So that's one of the things I love, is helping people move forward with their business, because we can't grow our business without growing ourselves. Yeah. And it is us. So as light workers, as spiritual entrepreneurs, as creative people, it's all connected. And so when you can plug in at all four levels of understanding and get feedback on all those levels, that's what's really so amazing. And I have a background as a marketing coach as well. And so I'm able to bring in that, help people with their copy and those kinds of things. But as I said, sometimes people just want they just want a message from Mother Mary, they can do a channeling session. They want to talk to Mother Mary, or maybe they want to talk to a loved one who's crossed over. I can do that as well. Or they have a question and they're like, I really want to ask my energy about, is this the right thing? Is it not the right thing? What is it? And it's more specific. When people want transformation, that's when I work with them to get them from here to here. That's when we work over time, because over time, and you'll appreciate this doing your human design, over time is when the patterns start to reveal themselves. And it's like, we talked about this 3 months ago and it's happening again. That kind of thing. And I love that. I love doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm finding more and more. I thought I would just be like a reader and just, here's your purpose and send them on their way. And it's like, oh, but I want them to succeed and to be able to take this and run with it. And then you find out that beliefs are so important, and that takes time to work with people to kind of overcome that.
Yeah. I get excited because I love it, because I just see possibility everywhere for people, which I'm sure you do too. And it's just a matter of making things really simple. And it's hard for me to do for myself. This is why I have coaches I work with, because I can do it for everybody else all day long, but to do it for myself, it's like, what do I do? How do I talk about, So just working with somebody else, it gets you out of the loop that you're in. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it gives you a focus for the week. And then you build on that. But what I love is that when we work with your energy, you also start to get to know your energy better, so that you're now like, oh yeah, the holidays are coming. I need to do these things to start taking care of myself. Or, oh yeah, my mother-in-law is going to come visit. I need to start doing some things to take care of myself. So you just start to understand. And that's where that empowerment comes in, because my goal is to have people not need me. My goal is to have them, you can always come back and check in with me, but you're able to take care of yourself. It's just really fun. I mean, that's what I think. Growing your business should be fun, and it just feels heavy a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, when you love what you do, then you can really start serving, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh. Well, friends, this was so wonderful. I loved having you on the podcast and sharing your journey and what you do, and those beautiful reminders of prayer. And everybody should just start, if you're
just
not
start
doing
wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Yeah. And I'll share too, that if anybody wants to explore doing a little work with me, you can go to francisfayden.com/gift, GIFT. And you could set up what I call a miracle meeting with me. It's a time to explore whether working with me would be something that would be helpful for you. You're welcome to do that as well.
Perfect. And I'll put in the show notes for everybody, your podcast, your YouTube, and your website, so they can just click there and go to your information, learn more about you. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's a gift.